Here we're going to tie the Patriot. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to get our thread started here. Right near the eye of the hook, about a quarter of the way from the eye. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to tie in our wings. For this I'm going to use some calf tail body hair in white, and we're going to stack it so the tips are all even. Now, once we've got the tips all nice and even here, we're going to take those out of the stacker. And we're going to tie these wings with the tips facing forward. What I'm doing here is just removing a couple of the longer hairs. We want those to be about 3/4 of the length of the shank of the hook. We're going to tie those in. A couple loose wraps at first, then we'll tighten down gradually. Once we've got them tied in with 4 or 5 nice wraps, we're going to trim out the butt ends. We're going to lay down a couple more wraps here just to make sure they're secured. Then we're going to draw the wings upwards, trying to get all the fibers. If you don't get them all, don't worry about it. We're just going to trim them out of there. And we're going to lay down some wraps right in front of the wings. This is basically going to pinch the wings so they don't lay forward, so they kind of somewhat stand up. That'll help us with our next step. Then we trim out all the guard hairs here that I wasn't able to manage here, and just cut those out. Now, once we've got the wings standing up, we're just going to split the wings in equal proportions here, and we're going to lay 2 wraps down. We're going to do the same exact thing here on the other side. Just create like an X. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go around each post of the wing, each leg of it, a couple of turns of thread. This is the more difficult part here. Try to trap as few fibers as possible. You're going to always trap a couple. Don't worry about it too much. Once you get a couple wraps around each post, you can get in here and trim out the ones that you trapped on accident. And I'll do that just a couple more times real fast just to make sure they're not going anywhere. Now they're nice and secure. We can take our thread and we're going to lay down a thread base all the way back to the bend of the hook. We're going to take our thread back forward. Now we're ready to tie in our tails. For this we're going to use some Hackle fibers. We want to keep these Hackle fibers, the tips of them, as even as possible. It's not always as easy to do as you think. And we want those tails to be about as long as the shank of the hook. And if you don't think you quite have enough in the first go around, you can always tie them in real fast and then get another clump going. Just make sure you get them fairly even. We're going to take these tails and we're going to take our thread back to the bend, just like so. Trim out the butt ends. This also helps with the transition from the body to the wing. Now we're going to take our thread back to the tail. And we can tie in our body material, which is just some mylar tinsel. I'm going to take 2 strands of this mylar. It's pearl mylar. And I'm just going to tie these in right there at the back of the tail. And then take my thread forward. I'm going to take that mylar and we're going to wrap it around the body. Now I'm just going to create a little bit of a tag here. Just like so. I'm going to capture that with my thread. What I'm actually going to do is build up a bit of a tag here. I'm going to leave this thread exposed. Once I've got a small tag about the size of the mylar we just tied, and then I'm going to take my mylar and continue forward up the body, trying to cover up all my thread. Go. I'm going to take it just behind the wings here, capture it. I could trim out the excess mylar. Now I'm ready for my hackle. For that I'm just going to use some brown hackle. I'm actually going to use 2 feathers. I'm going to measure it out here. I just want it to be a little bit longer than the tip of the hook. I want it to poke over just a little bit. I'm going to put each feather right up against each other, just like so. I'm going to strip out a few of the hackle barbs so I expose the stem. That gives me something to tie into here. I'm just going to tie it in with by the stems. I'm going to take my thread and jump in front of the wings here. Take it all the way up to the eye. Now I'm ready to wrap the hackle. Trying to wrap each one at the same time. You also have to be careful not to trap any of the hair from the wing. Once you lay down some wraps, you're going to jump in front of the wing. Once you've done that, you can capture both hackle stems. Trim each of those out, and any hackle fibers that you trapped on accident. Now we're going to pull the hackle back, clean up our head a little bit. Now you can whip finish. Trim out the thread. If you trapped any other hackles, you can trim those out of there. Sometimes you get a couple that on the first wrap don't quite cooperate. I just trim those out. That is basically your Patriot Dry Fly.